The Art of Leadership. In this video, we'll be looking at two books. These two books are about 2,000 years apart from each other, but they highlight how the aspects of leadership have not changed much over the course of history. The books are Cyrus the Great by Xenophon, a Greek philosopher, and Extreme Ownership, written by Navy SEALs Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And just as a side note real fast, Jocko Willink has a podcast, which if you're watching this video, you should definitely subscribe to that podcast, as it is, in my opinion, one of the most masculine things around today. So first, let's explain a little bit of what Cyrus the Great was about. Xenophon, he was born in Athens in 431 BC. As in the introduction of the book, the author explains, the translator explains, Xenophon's approach to Cyrus was broadly creative rather than narrowly historical. He was far less interested in presenting the plain facts of Cyrus's biography than in showing how a visionary leader can provide a strenuous and rewarding life for his lieutenants, as well as secure a comfortable existence for his subjects. So basically in his book, he goes through the story of Cyrus the Great as he brings an army. His father before he becomes king, his father gives him an army to go down and help his uncle who is having problems. And he helps his uncle, and then he ends up taking part of his uncle's army and going through most of the world around them and conquering everything. So Xenophon uses his story as he highlights the aspect of good leadership. But it's not historically accurate. It's just Xenophon using a name that was well known in his time, a name that was well known for not only being successful, but a good leader, and kind of implementing his philosophy of leadership into Cyrus's story. So let's get started. First, composure under duress. What we will be doing is using the main tenets of extreme ownership and showing where the similarities with Cyrus the Great lies. So the first component of leadership is composure under duress. And we go to extreme ownership now. On the battlefield, for those immersed in the action, the first recognition of an attack might be a wicked snap and a violent impact of incoming rounds, flying shards of concrete and debris, or the screams of pain from the wounded comrades. Urgent questions arise. Where are they shooting from? How many are there? Are any of my men wounded? If so, how badly? Where are other friendly forces? Is it possible they are friendly forces mistakenly shooting at us? The answers are almost never immediately obvious. In some cases, the answers to who attacked and how will never be known. Regardless, leaders cannot be paralyzed by fear. That results in inaction. It is critical for leaders to act decisively amid uncertainty, to make the best decisions they can based on the immediate information available. From Cyrus the Great, in the face of danger, be eager, not intimidated. What really distinguishes me was a clear and calculating, yet always benevolent mind. I was the product of a strict warrior culture, and I learned early on to suppress my emotions and respond to danger with great composure. So composure is very important in a leader. Composure during conflict, composure during uncertain situations. You have to keep a cool mind. You can't panic. Control your breathing and control yourself. Do not go into a panic state. How can you train this? In some cases, it might just be something that's natural to you. In other cases, if you have been through hard times and combustible situations, those experiences give you wisdom and you are able to deal with each new upcoming situation in a calmer state of mind. Or it could be even something as simple, if you don't have the experience of deal with hard situations, as simply controlling your breathing. Because when you panic, when you breathe hard, heavy, and fast, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It'll just make you go into panic more and be more indecisive. Whatever the case may be, it is important to have composure under duress. Next, tenet of leadership, extreme ownership. Now let's go to the book Extreme Ownership on the tenet of extreme ownership. On any team, in any organization, all responsibility for success and failure rests with the leader. The leader must own everything in his or her world. There is no one else to blame. The leader must acknowledge mistakes and admit failures. Take ownership of them and develop a plan to win. When subordinates aren't doing what they should, leaders that exercise extreme ownership cannot blame subordinates. They must first look in the mirror at themselves. The leader bears full responsibility for explaining the strategic mission, developing the tactics, and securing the training and resources to enable the team to properly and successfully execute. If an individual on the team is not performing at the level required for the team to succeed, the leader must train and mentor that underperformer. But if the underperformer continually fails to meet the standards, then a leader who exercises extreme ownership must be loyal to the team and the mission above any individual. If underperformers can't improve, the leader must make the tough call to terminate them and hire others who can get the job done. It's all on the leader. From Cyrus the Great. True leadership is making people all they ought to be. But if a man went further still, and we go to the story here of Cyrus, but if a man went further still, if he had the wisdom and the skill to be the guide and governor of other men, supplying all their needs and making them all they ought to be, that would be the greatest thing of all. He's talking about building your own people up there. A good leader is not only a leader himself, but turns his people into leaders, into quality people. So no excuses. No excuses. If you're in charge of something, whatever it may be, whether you're in charge of 2 people, 1 people, whether we're simply talking about yourself, don't think these aspects of leadership, these tenets of leadership cannot be applied to yourself to have leadership over yourself and ownership over yourself. So it could be as much of having rank over 10,000 people to 2 people to just yourself. All these tenets hold true. So if there is someone within your organization that is continually failing or making mistakes, it's not their fault. Too often you'll see people blame other people for the failures of a unit, a team, a business, etc. But the blame rests squarely on the shoulders of the leader. Because either you didn't train this person well enough, either you didn't put this person in a position that he could succeed in and help the team in, or you let someone who was incompetent stay amongst the group. It all goes back to the leader. Truly, the buck stops with the leader. The next tenet is believe. And we start with extreme ownership here. In order to convince and inspire others to follow and accomplish a mission, a leader must be a true believer in the mission. Even when others doubt and question the amount of risk, asking, "Is it worth it?" the leader must believe in the greater cause. The challenge comes when that alignment isn't explicitly clear. When a leader's confidence breaks, those who are supposed to follow him see this and begin to question their own belief in the mission. Every leader must be able to detach from the immediate tactical mission and understand how it fits into the strategic goals. When leaders receive an order that they themselves question and do not understand, they must ask the question, why? Why are we being asked to do this? Those leaders must take a step back, deconstruct the situation, analyze the strategic picture, and then come to a conclusion. If they cannot determine a satisfactory answer themselves, they must ask the questions up the chain of command until they understand why. If frontline leaders and troops understand why, they can move forward, fully believing in what they are doing. Now let's go to Cyrus the Great. Sometimes my self-doubts covered me with darkness. Before God, I would ask myself if I were so very different from the cruel little kings who had brought so much misery into the world. I too had created my share of orphans and widows. And did my ideals really excuse my use of the sword? I swore to God daily that my larger ambitions would create a new, more perfect life for the people. In my new kingdom, I vowed every day would bring a rebirth of peace and compassion. The leader must be a living law. Most of all, I vowed that all my followers would learn more from my own example than any legal code or set regulations. As important to the people as written law may be, the leader serves as a living law. So you truly have to be about the mission, the cause, the belief, whatever it is. There has to be 100% commitment into it, or the people around you will question and doubt, and their full potential at achieving the goal will not be utilized. If they see any doubt or hypocrisy in you, it is sure to trickle down to them. The next tenet, check the ego. We go to extreme ownership. Ego clouds and disrupts everything. The planning process, the ability to take good advice, and the ability to accept constructive criticism. It can even stifle someone's sense of self-preservation. Often, the most difficult ego to deal with is your own. Implementing extreme ownership requires checking your ego and operating with a high degree of humility. Admitting mistakes, taking ownership, and developing a plan to overcome challenges are integral to any successful team. Ego can prevent a leader from conducting an honest, realistic assessment of his or her own performance and the performance of the team. And in this day and age, ego is one of the biggest problems I see in people all around. We are living in the age of elephantitis of the ego, and I come into contact with it daily. Now, Cyrus the Great, they go on to say, be honest with yourself as you are with others. Also, when blameworthy, humble yourself before critics. How many people do that today? How many people can do that today? These frail, fragile egos around that the little slight of criticism turns into, oh, he's personally attacking me. This is typically the mentality of these fragile egos of the modern world. The relationship of distrust that has developed between myself and my uncle, this is talking about Cyrus the Great here, had been the work of my overbearing pride. And I vowed never again to act with such arrogance. And he's referring to, as in the story, he takes, after he wins his uncle's battles, he takes a good chunk of his uncle's troops to go continuing on conquesting. And he kind of outshined his uncle in front of his own troops, so they were all eager to follow Cyrus. And he had later come to realize that throughout the story. They go on, let everyone witness your act of reconciliation. And let everyone see the moment you humble yourself. That's truly a beautiful self-battle to overcome that pride, the unwarranted pride or the pride that blinds you. Not that pride in itself is bad, but overbearing pride. Avoid any hint of megalomania. And lastly, he says on this topic, grant your supporters freedom of speech. Very important. Honest criticism. Be willing to hear it. Or even honest disagreement. Be willing to consider it. Check your ego. Humble yourself. Of course, ego is good too. But you can't let the beast control you. You have to control the beast. Then ego can be your best friend. If only it is subservient to you and not the other way around. The next tenet, cover and move. Once again, to extreme ownership. Cover and move. It is the most fundamental tactic. Perhaps the only tactic. Put simply, cover and move means teamwork. All elements within the greater team are crucial and must work together to accomplish the mission, mutually supporting one another for that singular purpose. Departments and groups within the team must break down silos, depend on each other, and understand who depends on them. If they forsake this principle and operate independently or work against each other, the results can be catastrophic to the overall team's performance. Within any team, there are divisions that arise. Often when smaller teams within the team get so focused on their immediate tasks, they forget about what others are doing or how they depend on other teams. They may start to compete with one another, and when there are obstacles, animosity and blame develops. This creates friction that inhibits the overall team's performance. It falls on leaders to continually keep perspective on the strategic mission and remind the team that they are a part of the greater team and the strategic mission is paramount. So teamwork, very important. And Cyrus goes on to say, or Xenophon goes on to say, delve into details whenever details count the most. And he goes into, in the story, how different parts of his army, scouts, flankers, arrowmen, all had to work together, or it'd be horrible consequences of the arrowmen, killing the flankers as they're firing arrows up where the flankers are coming from the side and killing their own people. So you have to be on the same team and working together. Teamwork is paramount. We have to know what each person's doing. Everyone knows not only their individual mission, but the overall mission and how each little component fits into it. The next tenet, simple. In other words, keep it simple, stupid. Combat, like anything in life, has inherent layers of complexities. Simplifying as much as possible is crucial to success. When plans and orders are too complicated, people may not understand them. And when things go wrong, and they inevitably do go wrong, complexity compounds issues that can spiral out of control into total disasters. Plans and orders must be communicated in a manner that is simple, clear, and concise. Everyone that is a part of the mission must know and understand his or her role in the mission and what to do in the event of likely contingencies. As a leader, it doesn't matter how well you feel you have presented the information or communicated an order, plan, tactic, or strategy. If your team doesn't get it, you will not have kept things simple, and you have failed. You must brief to ensure the lowest common denominator on the team understands. Simple, in this principle, isn't limited to the battlefield. In the business world and in life, there are inherent complexities. It is critical to keep plans and communication simple. Following this rule is crucial to the success of any team in any combat, business, or life. And from Cyrus the Great, be frank about the challenges ahead. All right, the next tenet, prioritize and execute. Once again, from extreme ownership. On the battlefield, countless problems compound into a snowball effect. Every challenge, complex in its own right, each demanding attention, but a leader must remain calm and make the best decisions possible. To do this, SEAL combat leaders utilize, prioritize, and execute. We verbalize this principle with the direction: relax, look around, make a call. Even the most competent of leaders can be overwhelmed if they try to tackle multiple problems or a number of tasks. Instead, leaders must determine the highest priority task and execute. When overwhelmed, fall back upon this principle: prioritize and execute. To implement prioritize and execute in any business, team, or organization, a leader must evaluate the highest priority problem. Lay out in simple, clear, and concise terms the highest priority effort for your team. Develop and determine a solution. Seek input from key leaders and from the team where possible. Direct the execution of that solution, focusing all efforts and resources toward this priority task. Move on to the next highest priority problem. Repeat. When priorities shift within the team, pass situational awareness both up and down the chain. Don't let the focus on one priority cause target fixation. Maintain the ability to see other problems developing and rapidly shift as needed. And from Cyrus the Great, let your tools be equal to the task, meaning adjust your strategy and/or tools to the situation. And also, banish emotion from decision making. You cannot prioritize and execute when you're clouded with emotion. The next tenet of leadership is decentralized command. And we go once again to extreme ownership. Human beings are generally not capable of managing more than 6 to 10 people, particularly when things go sideways and inevitable contingencies arise. No one senior leader can be expected to manage dozens of individuals, much less hundreds. Teams must be broken down into manageable elements of 4 to 5 operators with a clearly designated leader. Those leaders must understand the overall mission and the ultimate goal of that mission, the commander's intent. Junior leaders must be empowered to make decisions on key tasks necessary to accomplish that mission in the most effective and efficient manner possible. With SEAL teams, just as with any team in the business world, there are leaders who try to take on too much themselves. When this occurs, operations can quickly dissolve into chaos. The fix is to empower frontline leaders through decentralized command and to ensure they are running their teams to support the overall mission without micromanagement from the top. There are, likewise, other senior leaders who are so far removed from the troops executing on the front line that they become ineffective. These leaders might give the appearance of control, but they actually have no idea what their troops are doing and cannot effectively direct their teams. We call this trait battlefield aloofness. The attitude creates a significant disconnect between the leadership and the troops, and such a leader's team will struggle to effectively accomplish their mission. The effectiveness of decentralized command is critical to the success of any team in any industry. In chaotic, dynamic, and rapidly changing environments, leaders at all levels must be empowered to make decisions. Decentralized command is a key component to victory. So in other words, if you're on the front line, whether it be in a warehouse or on a battlefield, and you have to run everything up the ladder to either the owner of the warehouse or the general, you're not going to get much done. Or it's going to take a long time to get anything done. If in a battlefield situation, it could cost you your life. So there has to be trust from the leadership passed on down to the junior leaders to make the decisions with the overall goal in mind, of course, but to make the decisions themselves. And guess what? If the junior leaders are making bad decisions, whose fault is that? Once again, yours. It goes all the way up top. Extreme ownership. You didn't have the right leaders in the position. That was your fault. So we go to Cyrus now on this topic. Minimize distinctions of rank. Well-trained personnel always come through in a pinch. Use your own people to plead your cause. It's just another way of saying the exact same thing of decentralized command. Let your special admirers work in your behalf. Once again, same thing. The eloquence of others may be as effective as your own. Choose worthy representatives. Prompt your friends to speak in your behalf. Just a little bit. This contradicts a little bit of what Jocko and Leif were talking about here, about the battlefield aloofness, because, the general's not on the battlefield with the troops. In the ancient era, it was a little bit different. The great generals were on the front lines. Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, all these people not only went on the front lines, but like Alexander would wear a helmet with different colored feathers on it to get attention. Caesar would wear a great red cape to get the attention. And this just motivated their troops to fight so much harder. But so this is an ancient premise. Our leaders of today don't do this, but this is what the ancients say about it. Stout hearts lead from the front, not the rear. I myself was the first to abandon the regular march and dash forward at the head of the army, shouting, "Brave men to the front! Who follows me? Who lays the first Assyrian now?" The men behind took up a shout till it sounded across the field with tremendous power. So he led in full stride, going to slay Assyrians. And he's like, "Hey, who's going to kill the first one now, guys, huh?" And which sent his men into a frenzy of murdering Assyrians. So it's this is an ancient era thing. This doesn't fit with what Jocko and Leif are talking about here, because it seems like most of our generals today are pencil pushers, not warriors. Okay, but let us go on. Emphasize the strength of your own cohorts. Seek additional suggestions from your subordinates. The next tenet, plan. From Extreme Ownership. Planning begins with mission analysis. Leaders must identify clear directives for the team. Once they themselves understand the mission, they can impart this knowledge to their key leaders and frontline troops tasked with executing the mission. A broad and ambiguous mission results in lack of focus and ineffective execution. To prevent this, the mission must be carefully refined and simplified so that it is explicitly clear and specifically focused to achieve the greater strategic vision for which that mission is a part. The mission must explain the overall purpose and desired result, or end state, of the operation. The frontline troops tasked with executing the mission must understand the deeper purpose behind the mission. While a simple statement, the commander's intent, is actually the most important part of the brief. When understood by everyone involved in the execution of the plan, it guides each decision and action on the ground. Following a successful brief, all members participating in an operation will understand the strategic mission, the commander's intent, and the specific mission of the team, and their individual roles within the mission. They will understand contingencies, likely challenges that might arise, and how to respond. The test for a successful brief is simple. Does the team and the supporting elements understand it? A leader's checklist for planning should include the following. Analyze the mission. Understand higher headquarters missions, commander's intent, and the end state, the goal. Identify and state your commander's intent and end state for the specific mission. Identify personnel, assets, resources, and time available. Decentralize the planning process. Empower key leaders within the team to analyze possible courses of action. Determine a specific course of action. Lean towards selecting the simplest course of action. Focus efforts on the best course of action. Empowering key leaders to develop the plan for the selected course of action. Plan for likely contingencies throughout each phase of the operation. Mitigate risks that can be controlled as much as possible. Delegate portions of the plan and brief to key junior leaders. Continually check and question the plan against emerging information to ensure it still fits the situation. Brief the plan to all participants and supporting assets. Ask questions and engage in discussion and interaction with the team to ensure they understand. Conduct post-operational debrief after execution. Analyze lessons learned and implement them in the future planning. And from Cyrus the Great, using unexpected tactics confuses the foe. Nip ill-advised plans in the bud. Strive to achieve a solemn sense of unity. Explain innovations in terms of mutual advantage. Delve into details whenever details count most. So having a good plan is detrimental. But also having a plan that is adaptable is also detrimental because, of course, things do not always go as planned. So your plan must be able to adapt to the situation. Okay, the next tenet, leading up and down the chain from extreme ownership. Any good leader is immersed in the planning and execution of tasks, projects, and operations to move the team toward a strategic goal. Such leaders possess insight into the bigger picture and why specific tasks need to be accomplished. This information does not automatically translate to subordinate leaders and frontline troops. Junior members of the team, the tactical level operators, are rightly focused on their specific jobs. They must be in order to accomplish the tactical mission. They do not need the full knowledge and insight of the senior leaders, nor do the senior leaders need the intricate understanding of the tactical level operator's job. Still, it is paramount that senior leaders explain to the junior leaders and troops executing the mission how their role contributes to the big picture success. Leaders must routinely communicate with their team members to help them understand their role in the overall mission. Frontline leaders and troops can then connect the dots between what they do every day, the day-to-day operations, and how it impacts the company's strategic goals. This understanding helps the team members prioritize their efforts in a rapidly changing dynamic environment. That is leading up and down the chain. And from Cyrus the Great, avoid disrupting operations, but let your voice be heard. Keep your communications clear and open. And lastly, gather intelligence from those on the scene. Ancient world leading up and down the chain. So we see whether it's a conquering king from 2,000 years ago or Navy SEALs unit kicking ass across the world today, the dichotomy of leadership has not changed much. What makes a good leader 2,000 years ago still makes a good leader today. Even with all the changes in technology and attitudes of people today, the core components of leadership and essentially of quality of the man have not changed. And lastly, we'll end this with a quick synopsis of the dichotomy of leadership from extreme ownership. Your basic tenets all summed up here. A good leader must be confident but not cocky, courageous but not foolish, competitive but a gracious loser, attentive to details but not obsessed with them, strong but have endurance, a leader and a follower, humble, not passive, aggressive, not overbearing, quiet, not silent, calm, but not robotic, logical, but not devoid of emotions, close with the troops, but not so close that one becomes more important than any other, or more important than the good of the team, not so close that they forget who's in charge. Able to execute extreme ownership while exercising decentralized command. A good leader has nothing to prove, but everything to prove. And if you're familiar with Aristotle's ethics, that is this dichotomy of leadership that Jocko and Leif end with, is essentially Aristotle's virtue is found in the mean, not in the excess and not in the deficiency, but in the mean, in the middle where virtue is. And that is essentially what the dichotomy of leadership is that balancing act. So once again, both books used in this video: Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win, written by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, and Xenophon's Cyrus the Great, The Arts of Leadership in War, can both be found on Amazon, and they are both great reads. And this video only scratched the surface on the things you can learn from these books. So I would definitely advise picking them up and checking them out for yourselves.